welcome to Safe Space Talk. Today we're going to talk all about different forms of abuse in relationships. We're kind of veering off from the OB-GYN topics a little bit, just to talk about a little bit something more relatable to all of us. All of us have known someone in an abusive relationship. It may be just learning some of the terminology and understanding and differentiating the different types will be beneficial to you, maybe being able to help somebody or help yourself if you find yourself in this situation. But first, we're gonna do our traditional or ceremonial candle lighting.
Dun, dun, dun. So we're gonna get these things lit here.
Light it up.
Light it up. Oh, good Lord Jesus, it's a fire. I think we may have got it. Woo! All right, so as usual, this is for us thinking about anybody going through anything extra heavy, extra hard, someone going after something that they've been trying to challenge themselves to obtain, doing something big, making big life moves, all of those things. So that's letting you know that we're thinking about you. We're here for you always. We're your allies and we're in your corner.
So different types of abuse. The one I think most people they think of the most when you say abuse is they are getting beat up. Yeah, they're getting beat up. They're getting their eyes black. They're getting punched on. So everybody kind of understands physical abuse. It is forcing yourself in a physical manner upon someone, inflicting pain on them, inflicting injury. So that is the biggest one that people need to, I think, realize is not everybody's abuse story. That's the easiest to recognize, but not the most common. Emotional. So emotional is defined as behaviors that make a person feel a lower self-worth, self-esteem, kind of get in their head, start to manipulate them. If you know, sometimes people are in a vulnerable state. Some people who are, I guess, predators, if you want to use that term, and seek out people that might be in a place where they are emotionally a little bit volatile or down low, and kind of take advantage of that to make themselves feel better. So that is kind of what I've experienced. I've not experienced. I was young. I was in high school, and there was a boy who was kind of popular. I don't know. Everybody loved him. He always seemed like a really nice guy. Everybody thought he was the greatest, the sweetest. He's so nice. Never mind the fact that when he was a gang member, did not show up to school half the time.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So red flags, but 16-year-old Keisha was like, he's always so nice to me. And we were dating for like 10 months. And in the duration of that 10 months, I just felt myself getting sadder and sadder. I couldn't figure out why I was so depressed. And it was just, he was very manipulative, emotionally abusive. He would write me on Messenger. This is back in the day when what is it, Hotmail Messenger, all that was popular.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
And he would I would always ask him, could you just call me on the phone after school? Could you send me a text? And he would purposely not do it because he knew that's what I wanted. That I desperately just wanted a phone call from him sometimes. I think in the 10 months we talked on the phone twice.
Oh wow.
On the phone.
So it was literally just denying your need for love language.
Yes. And so, but he was on Messenger all day long after school and talking bad about me, playing tricks on my mind. He was very big Christian. He was really big into Christianity. Okay. And he would always push this ideal of virginity, and would make it a big deal. And sometimes he was a virgin, sometimes he was not. You never really knew the answer. But he knew for a fact that I was not at that time anymore, and he just would make me feel bad about it. But I could never get a straight answer, on his end of it. And then it was very much so like, I'm attracted to you, but no, that's the devil. Like, very, And so after a while, I remember one day walking outside, and one of my friend's parents happened to drive by, and they said, hey, how's it going? And they just looked at me. They said, like, are you okay? And I was just like, no, like I wanted to cry, and I had no reason that day to be crying. It was just a regular Sunday. And I was like, yeah, no, this has to stop. And I went to school, told him I don't want to date you anymore. And he says, well, I was just about to invite you to a barbecue to meet my parents. So, and I was like, well, no, thank you. No, thanks.
I don't need the originators.
And then, so, after that, there was a bunch of girls ready to date him again. Cause like I said, very popular. And, I started noticing the cycle that every girl that dated him would come to school less makeup, now not dolled up anymore, just kind of quiet, more, to themselves. And I was just like, I'm so glad to have never have to go back to that. So it made me just hyper aware at a very young and impressionable age of don't let anybody take that power from you. So not saying it can't happen to me, because I don't want anybody to ever get that, because that's how it happens. But just the sneaky way that things like emotional abuse manifest themselves. So I think when it started getting to the digital abuse, which is a newer thing, is defined as harassing people online, following their profiles, making it to where they can't have their own online presence. They go through their friends list. They say who they can be friends with, follow, whatever. So, and that's when I think it turned to me, and I was starting to realize, he was very mean and verbally abusive to me in Messenger. And so I was like, okay, this is something physical that I can see that is not right. I knew that I didn't feel right with the emotional abuse, but that wasn't validating enough because nobody really talked to me about that. All I thought was abuse was physical. Getting punched. And so when it turned to the verbal digital abuse is when I kind of realized, like, okay, this is, something that's not right.
For digital can be things such as almost like I want to have your GPS on. Not because, like, for me, I get lost going to the mailbox. Don't tell me to go north, south, east, or west, honey. Tell me to make a right at the KFC. But if you tell me to go south, can't do it. So I probably need GPS tracking on my phone so that someone can look at the phone and be like, okay, make a right, honey, because you can't do it. But it's GPS tracking on your phone. It's taking screenshots of personal things that you've sent to that person, sometimes sexually things, explicit things. Revenge porn, or the fact that now once you send that picture, and that's something I've always tried to tell people, when you take a picture and you put it out there, make sure that it's a picture that you don't mind your boss seeing, which sounds crazy because who would want their boss to see a graphic picture of them? So the whole ideology is
see your cheeks.
Yes,
or maybe they do. I don't know
if they do, but you don't want them to,
right?
Kind of thing. But it's one of those where digital, that's something else that they'll do. So what they'll do is they'll kind of leer over. Oh well, I still have that video. Don't forget, I have that video, and you'll be surprised what a person, a mom, a dad, a parent, or a child's adult supervising person, you'll be surprised what they'll do to keep control. Like for me, I have a job that I love. I want to do things like this. Me being out here and being exposed online, her being out here and being exposed online, that's prime time for someone to be like, oh, I've got the video from back in '92. Like, bruh, stop, quit. So just so you know that digital, it's so far, it spans so far. So remember things that you're sending out. Remember photos. Remember what you post on Facebook, because they'll take that. Some people can take your photo and digitally alter it. That's another thing that people don't think about. That is huge. They can make it like the way, I don't know how do you describe it? When I guess Photoshop. You can Photoshop things to make them look so legit as if that person actually took the photo.
AI is the new thing.
That's what it's like, And it's like they can make it look like you're doing stuff you really aren't doing, but threatening to expose that. And that's more power. So just to add that on.
That is. And I think it's a bigger thing now for our kids. Like my son is in high school or coming into high school now, and it's just like such a big thing for them. Like the suicide rates of teens have come up because of digital abuse, because to them, our generation, we have a little bit more clear definition of the real world, our physical world, and then the internet. Theirs, I think, is very blended,
much in line,
and they can't differentiate.
I was about to say it's all intertwined for them.
Because when I first heard of digital abuse, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, walk away from the computer, put your phone down. Like that's how you stop the abuse.
Exactly.
But everybody is so big nowadays on the right to have an online presence that if you can't even have your own online presence because of abuse, then I guess that would be digital isolating.
And it's changing that persona, because it's the persona that you're trying to do. Just like I try to go to work and make a good persona about myself, someone can challenge your reputation with your persona online.
Yes.
And the only difference is you see a lot more people online than you come across in real life.
Yes. So then we also have a big one is sexual. That's another like taboo type one. The one that everybody else thinks of with sexual abuse, which is any kind of sexual coercion, forcing them into any kind of sexual acts that someone does not want to do. And that also means if you are a partner and you guys have agreed to have sex, and you change your mind
anytime,
and you withdraw your consent and they keep going, that is a form of abuse. Now, if it was a one-time thing, I would probably say talk to your partner. Let's get a clear understanding of what consent means to people, because you don't want to like label people as monsters when they're just not clear on the consent. However, that is something important that should be talked about in relationships.
Yes. Early on. Yes.
Yes. Or even down to like, okay, so for example, me and my boyfriend have this form of consent where it's like, I'll give you consent for the next 48 hours to approach me or to, you know, whatever. So like say we're on vacation and I'm sleeping, but he's in the mood and he wants to do something. I've already given him consent. He will ask me usually at the beginning of the trip, you give me, you know, consent, or am I allowed to start with you if you're sleeping? Can I wake you up? Okay, yeah,
that
sure.
makes sense. I like that. That's a really good point.
So then even because I'm a cranky person when I wake up,
usually I'm like, stop
waking me up. But then I quickly remember, like, I did give him consent, and he would still respect if I said, no, I don't want to anymore. But then usually I'm like, oh, okay, you know, we're on vacation. Why not?
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that idea, though.
Yeah.
I like how you set those expectations, because it's always different whenever you feel that, like, you're asleep and you start feeling hands going up and you're like, track. And you know that hand is going to keep on rising.
I gotta go to work.
Next thing you know, the hand's up here, and you're like, here we go. If your answer is no, honey, that hand better do like this. Like that is what is supposed to happen whenever it's it's not coerced out of someone.
So and then with sexual abuse, it's also, I think, you know, a classic, you know, pimp in a prostitute type situation. You see that a lot, where they're forcing, you know, your partner's forcing you into doing sexual acts that you don't want to do, or even if it's not a prostitution. So say in the lifestyle community, and people are swingers or polyamorous or whatever. Sometimes I've noticed that some partners are not as comfortable with the situation, but it almost seems as if their partner is using them as a bait to draw attention
to them, or they are. Yeah, they're basically exposing them sometimes, or it's not a mutual connection, or they don't, like, let's say one partner in the lifestyle may be a voyeur, and then the other one is not comfortable with that, but they want you to do something with someone else while they watch.
Yes.
So even though you're giving consensual sex to this other person, your partner is being abusive, knowing that that is something that you don't want to do, but you're doing it to please that person, and they're still manipulating you.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
And then stalking. Everybody knows, you know, stalker, following you around. That could be stalking you online. That could be stalking you physically, showing up when you've asked them not to. Popping up in places, and that kind of leads back to the whole GPS, you know, following them. And then last one is financial abuse. So improper use of another person's money, giving you allowance, withholding your own checks from you, or isolating to the point where you cannot get a job, and then only doling out what they think that you need, and it usually is not enough.
It's usually not enough. Yep. And then withholding finances, withholding more information that you need to know that you don't know. State that they're paying bills and they're not paying bills. Many times it's a credit.
Yeah.
Many times it's a credit abuse, believe it or not. So you'll have people that will, like in my history, one of the forms of abuse I've experienced was financial abuse, and swore up and down that the bills were being paid. I was a full-time student, what have you, and swore all the bills were being paid right as rain, was managing all of that because they weren't in school, and wasn't paying a doggone thing. They were also ciphering through the mail, though, as something to help take the stress off of me. So I'm looking at this loving partner thinking to myself, oh, okay, they're taking care of the mail, they're handling all the business things while I can just focus on being in school. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, like, Dell is like, yo, you hadn't paid us since March. Like, you may want to get on the ball with that. I'm not even getting the letter because it's coming in the mail and they're doing the mail. So a lot of times you start out with a credit score of blank, and then by the time this relationship is over, your credit score it's not even, they're stapling shit to your credit report at this point. Like, there's not even room to add it. Like, it's just done. So that's a huge one. But blocking your chances of being able to get more money, or even coming to your work and making scenes, that way you end up getting fired. So then it creates a place where now you have to put on your resume, or you have to put somewhere when they say
the scene, not get like
not letting you
not letting you get to work.
Get to work. The car goes missing, or it's out of gas, or it
Yeah.
has a flat tire, and they take forever to fix it, or they're fixing it, blah 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 blah. But you're not able to get to your own financial means, which gives you that independence. So it kind of gives them that power of keeping your finances in their control. Or like we were talking about before, like getting you fired from your job, and then for the rest of the time that you're using that employment history, and they say, why did you leave this first job? Now you have to disclose to each employer from then on, I got fired because of blah 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 blah. And so that's decreasing the odds of you getting, further employment. So that can literally go on. That's something that can actually lead to a lifetime issue. Like your credit can be now a lifetime issue. It's changing what houses you're able to get for the rest of your life. It's changing how much credit you can ever get for the rest of your life. If you can sign off on your children to be able to go to school on loans, they could ruin your children's educational future. So that's why abuse is one of those things. They say it cycles, but whenever I say it cycles, I mean like an infinity cycle. So then one of the next kinds, because like we said, there's a whole bunch, so we haven't gone into all of them. But there's things like educational abuse. You have a big test coming up. You're doing things in school, purposely knocking the Wi-Fi out. Whenever they know you have a test due by 11 o'clock, things like that. There's gaslighting, which is one of the most, I'm finding to be one of the more common ones now, more so than I even find physical abuse, because I feel like physical abuse is so, we recognize it, like people are looking, they're like, that looks like a black eye, you know what I mean? Like, so people are really more apt to notice that. But gaslighting is something, it literally, like, it's like gas, it's odorless, colorless, you just can't see it. And so what that is, it originated from a play, actually, that was turned into a movie back in the 1930s. I think it was a British play. But what the guy did was he married a wealthy widow. And in order to convince her that she was crazy, they were using gas lights in the home. That's how they lit their homes. So he would change the amount of gas that was igniting the flame. So she would believe that it was dark when it was actually light, and she would believe it was light when it was dark. So it was changing her perception of what time of day it was.
Of reality.
So she was like, wait. He's like, so you mean to tell me you don't have dinner ready? And it's, by the light it should be, 1340 or whatever. And this woman is like, I swear I just woke up. And he's like, yeah, because you slept the day away. Like, that's literally part of how he made her think that her reality was not correct. But gaslighting is essentially something like that, where someone takes a true attack at the mental stability of someone else by convincing them that what they're experiencing, hearing, believing, doing, or have done is not actually factual and is fictitious in their mind. So they basically try to fake you out and make you think that something didn't happen, or they didn't say
and
that,
it comes
or we didn't
like,
mean
oh no, remember?
Oh yeah,
and it's just more aggressive. Like, no, that's not what happened.
Exactly, that's not how that happened. That's not what I said. Another good one is, that's not what I meant. Lovely, like we hadn't
you knew that's not what I meant. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm supposed to interpret that. So I'm supposed to listen to you, interpret you into a normal language, and believe that that's what you meant, because you're telling me that that's how it was supposed to go. So gaslighting is very, very common. So just become more self-aware. Sometimes it's so deep. I actually tell people, put things in a calendar, not a calendar that other people necessarily are going to see, but write things down so that you actually know, like February 8th, went to the dealership and they told me it would take 10 days to fix the vehicle. Because when they don't want you to have access to the vehicle or what have you, they'll be like, no, they said it wasn't going to be ready until the 20th, or things like that. That doesn't sound like it's a big deal right now, but take that and do it with something emotional. Or now you don't go and pick up your car, or now you don't go, and it changes everything. It changes your transportation, your dependency. It makes you question. You're like, oh my God, I thought they said it was going to be doing 10 days. And they're like, no, stupid. They said on the 31st. Mm-hmm. So it's little factual things that you may actually just want to remember, so that whenever you look back, you're like, no, I wrote this down. So when you always have a relationship where you keep hearing, no, I never said that, or blah, 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 write down, today he said, or today she said, or today this person said I was fat and ugly. and they used this exact sentence. And then whenever they say, I never said that. Yeah. Well, according to my records, on June 12th at 12:47, that's exactly what you said. And I know you said it because I took the time to write it down. So I'm pretty confident it's true.
It's confidence in yourself again. Because a lot of people who are being gaslit are getting low self-esteem, low confidence because they're just like, am I insane? What's going on?
That's the whole purpose.
So you
literally making them think,
no, I remember correctly, and this is how I know I remember correctly.
And that's the thing, because if you don't have something to back you up, which what's going to back you up aside from another person to, corroborate your story, and or just you, because more than likely it's you and the person that's gaslighting you in the same room solo. So there's no one that's, the cat's not going to be like, no, I remember, and you did say that on the cat can't help you. So writing things down that are specific to you or specifically are triggering to you and having it in the exact words whenever you do it, that lets you go back and say, he's gaslighting me, she's gaslighting me. I know it because I did take the time to write it down. So that's one way I always try to encourage people. Trust yourself enough to write it down, because you are your best witness and ally if you can just know what's going on. And so it's hard. Now, granted, that's going to start another fight, because whenever you come back at them with some tangible stuff where you're like, no, you said it in this exact phrase. They're like, oh, you just wrote that to think.
Lose it.
Okay. And let it ride on.
I've seen it play out firsthand to where a narcissist, and I hate saying that because that term is so overused. Everybody's a narcissist. Everybody's toxic. And I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. Not everybody's a narcissist. But a true narcissist that I have come across in my lifetime, when she is threatened or presented any kind of factual evidence to the contrary of her beliefs, she implodes.
Oh, yes.
It is a sight to see. Foaming at the mouth, like losing it. Like, no, her sense of reality is being questioned by the actual reality of what everybody else has seen.
And accountability is a trigger to an abuser. It is such a trigger. When you say, no, you will be accountable for this because I have photo documentation or I have this, you want to see snap, that's when the abuser goes off, because the whole idea was that they were creating a weaker being. So when that being comes back with this,
it's like, how dare you?
How dare you? So, but thank you. So the next one is reproductive abuse. So that's something that it says 1 out of 7 women experience. That's something that I've actually experienced myself. Very, very close to my heart. Unwanted pregnancies are very, very dear to me. Let me be clear. Unwanted pregnancies does not mean that they're going to end in abortion or things like that. Some people continue to carry the pregnancy. They continue to carry it through term and things like that. But reproductive abuse is whenever the person is strategically attempting to achieve pregnancy without the consent of the other person. It can be lying about having a vasectomy. Yeah, I had a vasectomy. And you're looking at them like, prove it. Like, okay, you're trying to find an old scar on the scrotal sac, and it's like, okay.
Or even girls, the opposite way.
Because they say, I had a tubal, and and the guy is like, I don't know.
A lot of men aren't watching our birth control. Yes, I'm on birth control. Yes,
exactly.
I'm on the pill. I'm on the pill.
Yes,
I have an implant. I have an IUD. How would a guy know?
No, exactly.
How would a man know?
It's doing that with that purpose. So you're trying to essentially trap someone into being dependent upon you, or honestly, one of the rationales that it's done, you would think it would be because they must really want a baby. And actually the ideology is that if you go through with it, now there's always a link. So for some rationale, for a minimum of at least 18 years, even in court, they have a rationale as to why you can't get rid of them. You can't escape them completely because they'll have rights to the child. Excuse me. So that's something that is a really big deal. So sometimes it's by manipulating your birth control. So sometimes your partner will take certain pills out or things like that. And now you're skipping days and you can't get them fast enough because you're running out of that time. And now your fertile window has changed.
Condoms.
They put holes in condoms, or they take it out during sex. Not that I don't picture this being done without someone being aware, but it is plausible that someone can remove your IUD. Now, Would that be something that I feel like you would literally be able to sleep through? No, but if someone wanted to, they can go in,
get you drunk, or
get you drunk enough. They can literally go in and find the strings inside of your vagina. And I mean, what we're doing with it, whenever we go in through the vagina with the speculum, and then we take a pair of ring forceps usually, and then we grab onto the strings and we pull. So if you think about it, all they really need to do is grab something. They can use some tweezers, and they just go in and they just snatch that sucker out, and you're drunk. And in your mind, let's say you're not checking for strings, because not everybody wants to go up every month and check for strings. You're still thinking you have an IUD in, and you don't even have an IUD in. And pregnant AF. Like, and you're like, how did this happen? I have the IUD, and I'm looking at you like,
no, you don't.
No, you don't. No, we didn't ultrasound. There's no IUD in there. And that's how you find out. That's literally sometimes how you find out, because some people, especially, they don't have a cycle for a while sometimes with it. And even when it's gone, it takes a while before it builds back up. So to them, it's like me not having a cycle wasn't something new. And the reason you're not having a cycle now is because you're actually pregnant. So those are reproductive. Next is, so here we are. Here's my friend, here's my cousin, here's myself. What are things that I need to do? What are things that I need to know? Because the hardest part, and I want to make sure I make this very clear. Hear me, hear me, hear me. You do not leave an abusive relationship. You escape an abusive relationship. So to everyone, and I love everyone. I'm going to love you and say this at the same time. To all of the people out there, well, obviously, she must have liked it, or he must have liked it because they stayed for 12 years, or it obviously didn't bother her that much. Or, I mean, that could never happen to me because I just knocked the motherfucker out my damn self. I thank you for your toxic uselessness. Like, you are a piece of shit, and I'm just calling it out as it is. Because if you truly are in an abusive relationship, it's too many layers. If it was just, I'm gonna go to Food Lion and just not come home,
pets,
that would probably be it. You got your pets, you got your kids. Sometimes they're already married. That opens a whole new can of worms. Sometimes they have children together. Opens a whole new can of worms. Oh, so you're writing down stuff? Oh, so you're whooping me on Sunday? Like, how far back we want to go with this?
Be careful, wait for Mike.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want your thing clicking it when you're...
Oh, you know what? And it probably has been. I bet these people are
I've been watching it a little bit, but...
this shit, lady, because you're old and them damn pearls.